Hi everyone, good morning. Happy Wellness Wednesday. Today our special guest is Sean Russell, a founder of SoFloVegans, journalist, community leader. I met up with Sean over the weekend and he is joining us right now. I see you just joining us. Hope you have your shroom lattes ready, your elixirs, your superfoods. Hey Sean,
Hey, how's it going?
good morning. Happy Wellness Wednesday.
I'm glad to be here. Same to you.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you for being so prompt and so on time. It was awesome to catch up with you over the weekend at Fireflies.
Oh my
Every,
goodness.
yeah, wasn't that fun?
Yeah, that was an experience for sure.
So I want to introduce you real quick to everyone who doesn't know. Sean is the founder of SoFloVegans. He's been a friend of mine the last, 4 or 5 years. I think, Sean,
Yeah.
we've known each other from the Seed, Food, and Wine Festival, from Live Ultimate, from going to some of your events in the Fort Lauderdale area. And today we just want to get to know you even better and talk about your wellness journey, the projects you're up to. And so kind of fill us in on what, on your background lately, how things have been going with SoFloVegans, which is a really amazing group is it out of Fort Lauderdale?
We're
Yeah.
based in Fort Lauderdale, but we cover from Jupiter to the Keys. Pretty much anything that's considered geographically South Florida, our goal is to eventually touch all of those points.
Awesome. And when did you found SoFloVegans?
So I founded officially 2014. I was part of a meetup group called South Florida Vegans. The organizer dropped out. Around that time, I was looking at putting the community together because that's my background. I've been building communities for 26 years.
Wow.
And I decided, you know what? I want to build a community around veganism, and I took over the group, rebranded it to SoFloVegans, spent 3 years working with different nonprofit organizations like Animal Hero Kids. And then I started working with Seafood and Wine. So I learned a lot through both of those organizations. Then it's like we launched. And, since then we've done over 300 events. We've worked with pretty much, every organization through our podcast and the work we do with the community. And it's just been growing and continuing to build ever since. And it's all about community. So that's really, oh, that looks much better. And that's what makes me excited about what we're doing.
I love to hear that. Events and community is near and dear to my heart. And I've definitely seen you out in the community at the events, whether it's vegan events or wellness events. So have you always been into vegan? Like, kind of take us back to how your health story started and what your reasons are for the life you chose.
So I want to say around 2010, 2011, I found this program called Beyond Diet. And around that time, somebody made a comment about my weight, and then I immediately went to the gym and got a trainer and did a whole bunch of stuff. But no, I got this program called Beyond Diet. It broke down everything that you're putting to your body, and it's one of those things like once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I started eliminating certain things from my diet. First was red meat, then dairy, then eventually I was just eating like poultry, eggs, and things of that nature. I met a vegetarian at where I worked. I worked at a school called Silver Ridge Elementary, and she told me about veganism, and I was like, "Whoa, that sounds extreme. Let me do it." So I skipped the vegetarian step, went straight to vegan. Did it for about a year. Then I went to California. This is around 2008, actually. When this part happened, went to California, of all places, Los Angeles, and that's where I fell off my vegan
Oh no.
train. And it's like, it sounds weird now, especially
Yeah.
now, all I know.
Because they lead the health into they lead a lot of trends.
But what
Yeah.
that showed me is it
Yeah.
isn't about the resources, it's about the community for me. Because I didn't know anybody out there, and I wasn't the type of person who just get by on a salad. I was in a transition phase. So for me, when I took the break and it came back around 2013, I knew I get to add community into it. And because I had that experience building community, I decided just to build my own. But on another level, I didn't want to do what everyone else was doing. So I wanted to build a community that focuses on supporting other communities. So that way there's no competition. We're not butting heads with anybody. It's like, you have something that's cool. Awesome. Let's use our platform to share what you're doing. And then at the same time, if we see gaps in the community in terms of like a low amount of events or nothing, happening in this particular space, we'll create it originally. We'll
I
create
love
an
that.
original production. So that's really
Yeah.
was the basis of SoFloVegans.
So starting out with health, and your diet, and then you learned probably so much more about why it's important to be plant-based and vegan, and to reduce and remove all these things that are causing harm to the earth and our bodies. I mean, Forks Over Knives and all these movies. What's the newest one? The athlete one.
Game Changers.
Game Changers. Yeah, these are just. I think more and more people are waking up, right? And the amount of vegans in the U.S. is always increasing. Plant-based is also a big thing I want to talk to you about today. And I think it's really cool how you mentioned you need support, you need community. It's not just about knowledge. It's about support, emotional support, ideas, connection. And I see you featuring restaurants. I see you featuring. I went to one of your events where politicians were invited to speak on environmental issues. That was one of my favorite events ever in Fort Lauderdale. That was at like an art center or some type of
Art Serve, and I'm glad to see that they're opening back up and doing some pretty cool stuff. So who knows, you might start doing those events again. That was actually my intention at the beginning of 2020, but then you know the rest of that story.
Well, I saw you out at Fireflies the other day, which was an awesome wellness festival. Everyone there, they were eating raw fruit, really conscious people. And I understand you're a journalist and that you've been covering a lot of South Florida beyond being the founder of SoFloVegans. You're a journalist. You're out there in the community. You're a community builder. So I just really wanted to invite you on this podcast because a lot of our fans and followers are plant-based and vegan, and some are curious about it. And I wanted to address limiting beliefs today. I want to address trends you're seeing, any projects you can share with us that SoFloVegans is up to. And just also, I have my round of questions. So before we get into limiting beliefs and shout outs and some of the trends in South Florida and what you're seeing, because I think South Florida has an interesting story versus LA and versus New York. I want to ask you about your morning routine. Yes, I ask all my guests, what is your morning routine, Sean Russell?
So my morning routine is So my morning routine, my ideal morning routine was waking up whenever I wake up. I don't set an alarm. I typically wake up around between 6 and 7 every morning routinely. And I have the tea. I mean, no, I do. Oh, you know what? I just start integrating. I'm not saying this is because of you.
No.
I got a bottle of elixir.
Yeah.
At the Firefly.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
and I've added that to my morning routine. So I have 2 scoops. I mix it up. I have that. Then I let that sit for a while. I then have some tea. I have like a different sorts of teas from different companies. Spa Juice Bar, shout out to them. Shout out to Rainbow Root Teas. I have those. And then I just, depending on the day, I do Yerba Mate. And then I just jump right into it. What I would love to add to my routine that I haven't been doing as frequently is taking time before I even jump on any electronics just to journal, have my piece of paper out and just journal until I'm done. No set time. Typically it'll be like 2 to 3 hours of journaling. Then once I'm done with that, then I'll jump into my day, my work day. I work for myself, so I just go into my living room and start working. Yeah, that's typically what my morning routine looks like. I have a little pull-up bar as well, so I just do with some body weight exercises, and then jump into the day.
Cool. We were talking about journaling a couple of weeks ago on Wellness Wednesday with Mike DeCourcy out of Boulder, Colorado. And he has been journaling for, I think, over 10 years, every single day. And he recommended to get a Moleskine notebook and a nice Pilot pen. The Moleskine notebooks are great, I guess, for keeping it nice and, formal and beautiful versus just on a legal pad of paper or something like I do. But I think 20 minutes is enough, just journal anything. There's no rules, he said, just write, and it's an outlet and you don't even hold on to it. I mean, you can save it, but you don't have to worry about it being for something later, like for a memoir someday or for some type of book, or he doesn't even read most of his past stuff. For him, it's an outlet. It's a way that he can, I'm sure you can get some ideas from it. And that's a great thing about a morning brain dump or a morning meditation is you can really get a lot of great ideas that might come to you. So yeah, journaling's a big thing. I think that for my morning routine, I'm trying to get into it as well. I haven't enacted it yet, but I'm building it in. I think we can always improve our mornings. Do you fast in the morning? Do you drink a lot of water? It sounds like you're drinking a lot of tea. Do you also eat any fruit? I ate a bunch of fruit this morning.
I sometimes eat fruit. Typically, I don't really eat until like the afternoon time. I just do consume the teas and the powders and the mixed beverage, the mixes, and because yeah, I'm not really hungry that much in the morning. I mean, I'll occasionally do like a fruit, like when they have those sumo citrus from those are like my favorite fruits of all time, and they're not around that often. So I'll do one of those maybe, but I don't like anything too heavy in the morning.
Cool. Um, so you said you just started on the Ultimate Elixir. Have you felt any, did you feel this, because you probably eat a lot of interesting vegan food, because from gourmet vegan restaurants to juicing to herbs to being at all these events like Seed Food and Wine. Have you taken super greens a lot and mushrooms before?
I've had
Medicinal mushrooms?
I've had medicinal mushrooms off and on. I haven't, this is really the first time in a long time I've added something like this to my routine. So I've started doing it, let's say, when did I get it? Sunday was the first time I added this to my routine. So in terms of, feeling the effects, I'm still,
Yeah,
I typically don't feel dry. I usually have enough energy to go from 6 a.m. in the morning to
yeah,
midnight and without any breaks. So I'm not at a loss for energy,
yeah.
and I know that I feel it's more of like an insurance policy for myself to make sure that I am getting those nutrients, because you may not feel the impacts of not having proper nutrients until later on, until it all builds up and then you have this huge problem. So I would rather just make sure that I'm getting those greens, getting those vitamins into my system. And of course I do B12. I definitely recommend B12 from the experts that I've spoken to, if you are deciding to go on a vegan diet. And there's other nutrients too, especially with everything that's happening. It's good to be able to have those in addition to the foods. And of course nutritionists and dietitians, they will, from what they're telling me, the best place to get these are from whole foods, whole food plant-based foods, and you may not always be in a situation to do that. So it's good to have things like Live Ultimate and all these other items, so that way you can make sure you're getting that.
I love how you said it's like an insurance policy. We look at it as like an investment in your health, not an expense, because just like going vegan and plant-based, you're removing red meat, you're removing, I was reading a study in February for American Heart Month that removing red meat lowers your risk of stroke, heart disease by like huge amount, like 80 to 90%. Like literally it helps, remove plaque from the arteries, helps berries help to widen the arteries. We were doing a lot of research on heart health for February, and alkalizing with super greens and just even removing red meat, that first step shows that it reduced a huge amount of like early death that's preventable. So, and then you were talking about energy levels. I feel like people who become vegan and vegetarian and more plant-based, I feel like they have more energy because they're not, weighed down by all this processed food, or even there's gourmet vegan food, of course, it's very, can be kind of make you a little tired too if you eat too much, but there's a time and place for celebrating and having a very hearty meal that's gourmet, that's like, there's some amazing vegan restaurants. I want to get into that in a second too. But yeah, I just think a morning routine with the elixir and the shrooms. Someone was just asking where they can get it. Liveultimate.com, guys. The Ultimate Elixir, Ultimate Shrooms. We have some new products coming out in the future too that we're excited to share with Sean and SoFloVegans and our whole community. But I'm just really excited to have you on today, Sean, because we've known each other for a couple of years now, and you've always been a great leader in our community. And I saw you out at Fireflies, and you were there connecting with people that might not be the same people that might come to SoFlo, but they would if they knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
It might be more fire dancers, Burning Man people, DJs, yogis, but those same people do come to SoFloVegans, and you guys have a big following. So I know that you've grown that over a lot of consistency over the last, it sounds like 8+ years that you guys have been, 6 to 8 years now. Consistency is key with Live Ultimate too. Not giving up. Same thing with like transitioning, right? Like let's maybe move into that section for people who, are curious about how to do it. Like, do you recommend that what are the resources? How do they get support? What's the best practices? Is there a best practice for, going vegan or for going plant-based,
Yeah, no, I definitely, for me, it's being able to connect with the community, tap into the community. That's why I created SoFloVegans, so you don't have to guess and you don't have to just rely on a Google search, because it's one thing to get that information, but it's another to be able to have somebody in your community you can go to, whether it's an event. There's a lot of tasting events that you go to. If you go to a vegan place, to these events, you can go and try the food for the first time, get an example of what it could taste like on the high end, the more get gourmet end of things. There's a lot of options in the supermarkets. I think the disconnect is being able to know where to find that information. And that's why we created our organization, to be that bridge between anyone looking to get into the vegan space. So we have a directory right now on our website that has cookbooks. It has documentaries, podcasts, restaurants locally sorted by Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, and then anything. And then I am also looking out for questions people ask me and questions people ask on other forums, and then creating resources for that, so you have everything you need. But a lot of these events, especially the animal rights organizations, they have pamphlets on their table that have recipes, that show you starter guides, how to transition away from meat and finding out, okay, what are good substitutes for beef? What are substitutes for seafood? They have so many things, so many plants that you can use, oyster mushrooms, jackfruit, a lot of the out-of-the-box things that, because we live in South Florida, we're in a tropical environment, it's easily available for us, which is another reason why our mission, our motto is South Florida is a global hot spot for veganism, because we have all the box checked. And all that information is available on SoFloVegans, and you can search it as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been on your website recently, and I see that you have events on there. You have data directories. And someone was asking earlier in the podcast, are you a food delivery service? And no, right? SoFloVegans is a community. It's but that's a good idea.
No. We're actually partnering up, and this is the part of how we plug into everything that's going on. There's a company called InAClick, and it's owned by the founder of The New Vegan, which is a huge restaurant in Palm Beach area, the Delray area, where we're working on putting together a delivery service that's similar to like a Grubhub or like to these different things that caters specifically to vegan businesses. So we're looking for people within the community that want to be delivery drivers. We're looking for businesses that want to, start using the service. And then we're using all the work that we do through SoFloVegans to promote it so that the community knows that it exists and that these businesses can take full advantage of it. So that's something that we're in the early stages of. We launched our app about 2-3 weeks ago. So if you download the app, we're both on the Android and the Apple store, you'll see a direct link to InAClick, and you could sign up as a delivery driver. And you could also just reach out to us if you are a business out there that wants to make that switch. Because the other thing too, because he is a business owner and he uses these sort of companies, the goal was to create a model where the majority of the money stays with the businesses, and we're not trying to rip any. Let me be very mindful. The way that we're designing it is so it could support the community.
I love that.
And not just the vegan community, but people who are looking for vegan options, because they said 2019 was the year of the vegan. I'm hearing a lot of people saying 2021 is the year of the flexitarian. And I see and I have another term for flexitarian. I look at them as future vegans. And we get to be inclusive. We get to be a community that's loving, compassionate. So that over here, hey, the party over here is something that you want to be a part of. So that's what we're working on with SoFloVegans.
Oh my God, I love that. So that's a new app and service coming out called InAClick.
Yeah, and if you download the SoFloVegans app, we're working with them.
Oh wow, you have an app? Okay, hold on, stop the train. SoFloVegans has an app, guys. Get on that. I'm gonna get on it right now. And get the Live Ultimate app too while you're out there. If you're interested in becoming an ambassador, that's the best way to learn about us. But SoFloVegans app, guys, it looks like InAClick, so it's going to be like an alternative to Grubhub and Uber Eats for vegan restaurants, vegan food services. I want to connect you too with my friends in Fort Lauderdale called Grown Next Door, and they're a new food delivery service too, Black owned as well. So I think that that's a powerful connection that we can have. Connect you and SoFlo. I'll remind you after the podcast. But that's a really, really cool idea. And it's a gap in what's currently being offered, right?
Correct.
There's
Correct.
no way, like my girlfriend and I, we're hungry some nights and we're trying to find the healthiest option if we're going to get a delivery service. If it's too late to go to the grocery store, we're just feeling like ordering out. Especially in, this last year, it's been all about delivery services, in most of the US. So that's definitely, guys, go get that SoFloVegan app and look at it, and also go on their website because they offer a lot of resources that Sean has been sharing with us here. And you're also on Instagram and Facebook, and you're on YouTube as well?
Yeah, everything SoFloVegans.
Okay.
SoFloVegans. And yeah, there's so many projects. One of the things that you touched on it a little bit earlier is like, we used to always just do like vegan events. Right now we're looking at being at non-vegan events as well, because that's the community that gets to be introduced to the vegan options. And obviously we are still doing vegan events, looking to partner with people we've worked with in the past, working on those. We're reaching out to a lot of vegan businesses. So a lot of the video content we create is going to be rolling out on a more consistent basis. We have a podcast that comes out weekly. We're getting ready to launch a digital magazine, which will also be a print magazine that we'll be selling at events. And in those print magazines, we'll have coupons that you'll be able to use at these restaurants. So kind of help guide you to it. So everything I just mentioned, if you're a business and you want to be a part of that, just reach out, send us a message. Chances are we'll reach out to you soon too.
Awesome. I got some businesses in Miami-Dade. One of my friends owns Nabati, which is a vegan ice cream store in Wynwood. My shout out to Ola with Nabati. We love you. I've been a DJ there before, and I want to get into your music too in a little bit, Sean. So,
wow. Okay.
We're gonna get ready. There's gonna be a little section coming up, but I also recently met the owner of Faux Bloom in Miami Beach. So shout out to Nico from Faux Bloom. There's so many other restaurants here that we could talk about. We'll get into that in a second, but I want to talk about South Florida versus LA versus Maui versus New York, like some of the hot spots in the world for, vegan. Where else, like San Francisco, like what makes South
Portland.
Florida special? I know we have a lot of different cultures here combining, and that's really powerful. But what is it else that is made us kind of a late bloomer, but a really strong, part of the movement now, like you've seen with Seed, Food, and Wine? They emerged out of South Florida, and other great, vegan block party. There's been some really good organizations that come out of South Florida Vegans now. And yeah, what makes South Florida interesting, and maybe an advantage, or not an advantage, but what are the differences, that you think might make it somewhere? Well, we talked about tropical fruit and it being, you can get a lot of stuff down here. You can get jackfruit, you can get, papaya, a lot of fruit. And, but I'm from the Midwest. We can get a lot of vegetables up there. So I'm from Wisconsin. But yeah, so tell me, geographically, what makes us so special down here in South Florida besides our warm weather?
So like, I consider myself a South Florida expert. I lived here my entire life, going on 39 years now. And not only that, I've also been involved with multiple industries, from education to music to the arts, on an extensive level. And what I've noticed across the board is that we have a lot of innovation happening in South Florida, and it typically tends to go somewhere else. And that's really because we're a transient community. Majority of the people that are down here come from other places. A proportion of those individuals live other places for different times of the year. We have the term snowbirds and all that situation. So we're almost like a tourist city, a tourist community economy.
100%. Yeah.
So you don't have that Boston type feel where we have all one similar identity. And so it cuts both ways, because you have all these, it's a melting pot of all these different cultures coming from South America, coming from the Caribbean, coming from the North, some coming from the West with this mass exodus from Los Angeles that's been happening in the last couple of months. A lot of those innovators and tech entrepreneurs have been relocating to Miami, turning it into a brand new hotspot, which is the motto we've been saying since we launched. So that's what makes it strong. What we're doing with SoFlo is answering the other part of what I just mentioned. The fact that we don't have that solid identity. You have the Cuban community, Jamaican, the Haitian, all these different populations doing amazing things. where I want to see us shift is it from, yes, you can have that identity, and you're also calling yourself a South Floridian. Because if we can take all of what makes Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach great and consolidate it into one region, that's going to give us more, for lack of better words, buying power in terms of showcasing what we can do in this community. So I see that happening. That gets to be a conscious shift. For a lot of these organizers that are out there. We're doing some things internally, not even just through SoFloVegan, but through my main company, Lasaurus Media, that's going to be integrating some things that will create that identity. So just a lot of exciting stuff, collaboration. Obviously, you have the weather. I mean, if you looked at when everything was like in 17 feet of snow, even in Texas, you're like, what? And then meanwhile in South Florida, people are here on the beach, living their best life. So that's really what South Florida has to offer. And, I see it as my mission in life to showcase to the world that this is true, but not by telling you, but by showing you.
I love that. My next question that comes to mind is the plant-based versus vegan discussion. Jackie Tarleton was in my office yesterday from Plant Chick. Shout out to Jackie. Love Jackie. And she's always a bright sunshine beam that comes into our office. She's one of our ambassadors. She's a good friend of mine. She's been a Wellness Wednesday nutritionist, super passionate about helping people become plant-based and vegan. Do you like the word plant-based? I mean, because some people a lot like it, because I actually tend to like it, but I like the word vegan too. And I don't feel like some people, I heard someone say on Instagram the other day that a vegan diet is not necessarily healthy because it could be loaded with processed vegan foods or things like vegan cheats, like even an Oreo apparently could be vegan, I guess. But plant-based means that you're adding a lot of plants to your diet, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're removing all animal products. So how do you navigate that area, and how do you re-engage people who might get turned off by the word vegan and they would prefer plant-based or flexitarian, or vegans, have they perhaps gotten a little bit of a bad name for being a little bit, like a clique, or do you think that's changing? I know it's kind of a big question, but
no, I mean, it's obviously a question that, I've thought about multiple times. And for me, the way I simplify it is being vegan is a lifestyle, being plant-based is a diet. So you're looking at those two distinctions, and you could be a vegan, live, on a plant-based diet, and you might not necessarily be plant-based being vegan. But for me, it's less about, there's so many other things going on right now within the movement, for me to, potentially hinder someone's progress through their vegan journey on semantics. It's not where I want to spend my time, because there is definitely, a distinction. And I get to be mindful of what I'm putting out, especially as a representative, putting myself on this platform of what we're about. So I focus more on the lifestyle of, like, because that's the beautiful part about
including being green. Is that part of being vegan? I know not using like leather and like, what can you kind of spell out for us, like what a vegan lifestyle is all about?
So a vegan, like for me, and I preface everything with for me, it's all about not exploiting, not doing any harm to animals, not using it for profit, not using it for personal gain. It's consent too. It's like, whatever you're doing, if the animal can't give you consent because there's a language barrier, but if it doesn't give you permission to do it, then don't do it. And also, shout out to Susan Hargreaves. I always shout her out whenever I do these interviews. She boiled it down to me very easily. And this is when I started to make that shift in my head and start doing it for the animals. By the way, I do it for the animals. I do it for the health. I get a little bit more into the environment side. It's just what I don't know. But ultimately, my number one reason for being vegan is about compassion. All right, with that being said.
I just saw someone put a HIMSA. Love Artie Hollander, one of our ambassadors. A HIMSA, which means nonviolence, right? No, I love that. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. In the flow too.
And
Yeah.
it's a practice too. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you get to work on it, and be aware of when you are out of alignment with the lifestyle that you're adopting. But I mean, in terms of the veganism and Susan, she meant, I think I brought up like petting zoos. It might have been petting zoos or zoos itself. And I'm like, I think it was petting zoos. Are petting zoos, are those bad? And she said, put yourself in the position of that animal. You know what I mean? Like, would you want to be in that situation? And to me, it was just
No.
kind of like, oh, that's that's so simply put. And, there wasn't any energy on it. It was just like, put yourself in a position. Would you want to be there? So I was like, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, pretty much it's just,
So like even like sweatshops like that, people don't really, I mean, they give their consent, but let's say you're buying fashion. I just saw my girlfriend actually wrote, I never buy purses or clothes from animals. That's a real fashion statement. And then like, fashion too, like it's crazy what's going on out there in the world for, how much they sell stuff for versus what it's made for. And also taking advantage of, different, like, taking advantage of people in the workplace. And I guess, also being like an eco warrior, which is a little loaded word, but I'm an environmentalist, and we're like kind of, what is the word? Like we're standing up for people that don't have a voice, not people, but the planet,
mm-hmm.
And the animals can't, give a voice necessarily, but humans can. So, if someone doesn't stop, then it's like that book by Dr. Seuss where they cut down every single tree eventually. And we are all of a sudden on Mars now because we destroyed the earth. And, it's vegan, I think, is more than just diet, right? It's about the earth.
So
your lifestyle.
I had a conversation on our podcast with Dr. Salesh Rao. He wrote a white paper on how the consumption of animals is one of the leading causes of the climate crisis that we're experiencing. And I realized later after re-listening to the episode that I kind of turned it into my own thing. But essentially what I got from him was an acronym, HEAL. And once again, it's a mixture of what I thought and he thought, because his is a little different. HEAL is health, in no particular order: health, the environment, animals, and then love. So if you remember that, to me, that embodies, why I am vegan. But for me, if I had to pick like my number one reason, it's love, because it's not just love for someone else, it's for yourself. And as someone who is part of an organization, or is running an organization, you could be so passionate, especially when people just first become vegan. You see them getting super passionate about it, and and maybe even sometimes being very aggressive, but that's part of that passion.
So there's an evolution. Yeah, there's an evolution, right? Yeah.
And the love part comes in for being compassionate to yourself, because that could lead to burnout. That could lead to other things. So being self-care, taking care of yourself, items like, Live Ultimate, things of that nature can support you so you could be at your best to then support other people. And that's something I had to learn the hard way. And so for me, veganism is not just about one thing, it's about the entirety of it. But being kind to yourself, not beating yourself up if you're not perfect, but just being aware on
that's a good point.
Being aware of those areas in your life where you get to make shifts and improve. That to me means more than anything, because then when you see that showing up for other people, you can then share that compassion, because you're not so much in the mix of what you're doing right now. You're mindful of where you were and what got you to where you are now. And if it was people, being aggressive with you that got you to where you are, then, that's a thing. But for me, it's usually, I don't want to say honey, I say agave. I usually can get me with agave versus vinegar.
That's a nice little sub point to kind of discuss, is the honey industry, because I know there's a lot of, people, and I just saw someone say it's so hard. It's a friend of mine. It's so hard. I won't say her name, but it's so hard to be 100% vegan in your lifestyle and then be perfect in the sense of that. But how do you said it's about being compassionate, about not judging yourself or others, which I agree with. And it's not about perfection. Is it maybe more about, my girlfriend lately has been saying, not perfection, excellence. Is it excellence, or is it being true to your core values and understanding that you're like, how one of my questions was limiting beliefs. We still want to talk about that, like that you address people like it's so hard, or I am not vegan because I like to have meat once in a while, or I like to, but then maybe they only have it once a month or a couple times a month, like that could be more flexitarian. But so I think are you kind of saying today in today's podcast that being vegan, it's not only a lifestyle, and it's more than eating, it's the health, the environment, the animals, the love for yourself. Is it more about being part of a movement and shifting when you can in your life all these different behaviors throughout your day that you're used to, whether it's I'm shifting plastic, I'm trying to buy less and less. I've always been anti-plastic in grocery bags and also in straws, of course, but also in everything. I was just reading an article last night that scientists in the US found over 95 chemicals in babies and women, pregnant women and babies' blood. And they found 42 chemicals. They don't even know what they are. They're called mystery compounds. And like 55 of the chemicals are from plastics and cosmetics, like literally microplastics. Like they use an example of sushi, how you get sushi in the store and it's in that plastic, container. Mm-hmm. But anything, like picture anything wrapped in plastic and you're getting basically microplastics. So, but I think, back to the original question, which is like, how do you, what do you tell people who are saying it's hard to be vegan? Do you just encourage them to do it on a more gentle path and not judge yourself, or to not think of it as like you're in a box, you're vegan versus not vegan? Or how do you, because everyone can be part of SoFloVegans, right? Even meat eaters, right?
Yeah, for sure.
To learn, and connect.
So there's two things. One is it's taking a stand versus taking a position. And for me, it's I know where I stand and I'm open to hear someone. So if like you're telling me, like if a meat eater were to come up to me and start saying what they're saying, I come from a position where I'm open to hearing what you have to say, coming from a place of understanding and not judgment. Because in your share, I get to have a deeper understanding of the community that we're reaching out to. So that's where I come from in any conversation, in any subject matter. Not from a place you're bad and wrong, but from a place of I get to understand where you're coming from so I can become a better communicator with you. So that's how I look at that. The second thing is the pathway to understanding. It's awareness of yourself first, because then you can see what's stopping you from fully going vegan, what's stopping you from eating that diet that you've committed to in January 1st. So once you can see what's getting in your way of committing to something, being your word to yourself, then you can move to that next spot of educating yourself, arming yourself with the knowledge of how to do what you have committed to doing. Then once you have that knowledge, you can then go into the stage of applying that knowledge to your everyday life. And that's when you get to constantly dip back into the awareness. So when you were in a situation and you're out looking for something to eat, I just want that cheese pizza. Oh, I really just want that cheese pizza.
That's a weakness for me, is the cheese pizza, honestly.
And instead of it being like, this is so hard, you can go back to that first step and be like, okay, what's coming up for me right now that's making me want that cheese pizza? And you remove that roadblock, you're good to go. So that mixed with community, being able to then jump into the community, reach out to them and say, hey, I'm really struggling right now with this cheese pizza. And they give you words, affirmations, and whatever. It's all of it's tied together. So for me, that's why I say, my number one reason for being vegan is compassion, because it brings me through that cycle in a second, because I am constantly practicing that, not just through my vegan journey, but through every aspect of my life.
Awesome. I love that. So next question is, from Artie, any tips for raising vegan kids? Vegan parents tips, yeah.
You have two things. One, if you are just getting into it and you want to have let's say you're just becoming vegan, you want to have your kids become vegan, I feel it's just going to the fundamentals, looking at what's healthy foods. Especially with the kids, you want to make sure that they're getting their nutrients. You want to make sure they're getting all that information. So that is, just eating a whole food, plant-based diet.
That's what baby food is usually. It's fruit that's just all mashed together. It's 99% organic usually. Like you see, even the kids get the best food, by the way. They should. And then we get stupid when we become adults. We're like, oh, let's just have that, French fry. You wouldn't give a baby a French fry. You know what I mean? I'm just going to pick a French fry, but but French fries are vegan. Actually, I heard yesterday too. So
and you want to be careful sometimes, unless it was mislabeled. I saw milk.
Unless it was boiled and Yeah, yeah.
But
Or
anyway,
if you fry it in like pork fat or something, which is terrible. But so with kids, it's just back to the basics, right? It's just getting them the nutrients they need, whole plant-based foods.
and it's no different than what you're going through. It's like once you go through I would say if you're going to have your kids go on a vegan diet, you get to go on a journey with them. And then
Hmm.
if you are on that journey already, it's not like there's an adult apple or an adult kumquat. You know, it's just, I think the hardest part is looking at once they're out of your influence, what
That's true.
happens.
And how do you
That's
start them? Because I have some nephews and nieces, and none of my nephews. I've seen kids. I'll just say that they get the fast foods at an early age as a treat once a month or something. I think it's a bad practice because I think when I was not the judge, but from my childhood in Wisconsin, I stopped eating fast food when I was about 17 years old, about 22 years ago, and because I started working on an organic farm and I started getting exposed to what GMOs are. But I think I have a lot of childhood memories, and I love my mom and dad, but I have a lot of childhood memories of my dad grilling out in the backyard, you know, and he grilled meat, or us going to a Brewers baseball game and getting like some type of vendor hot dog, which I think are disgusting. And then also I have memories of lots of things, Lunchables from Oscar Mayer. They came to our school when I was in first grade with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, which is like a stretch limo it looks like a giant hot dog, is literally something out of The Simpsons, like literally, or South Park. And I'll never forget that. They're literally brainwashing us in first grade, the dairy industry, the meat industry, the processed meat industry, full of nitrates and sulfites and all these things that are linked to cancer.
Mhm.
And that's right out of Madison, where I'm from. Oscar Mayer has their headquarters in Madison, their giant plant that processes all their meat, their slaughterhouse, and their Lunchables factory. So it's tough with kids, but I think you got to start them early because then they don't, like I've seen kids raised by hippies that are my friends. I'm just going to use that word lightly, hippies. I hope it's PC nowadays, but that they don't even know what a McDonald's meal is, you know, or what a pizza is, you know what I mean? And I think it's smarter to keep that away from kids, you know, because it's so tempting. It overpowers your taste buds with things like MSG, which I don't know if that's considered vegan or not, but it's in, you know, food, and it creates like makes your brain go crazy, you know, with excitotoxins. And there's other things like artificial flavors and all the things that make it taste so good, all the salt, all the, you know, fat and all the sugar. Um, so I guess, you know, that's the kids section. I don't want to belabor that point too much. Do you have any last thoughts on the kids section? Otherwise, I want to move into like the restaurant section.
Yeah,
We
no,
have,
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's way more that's out there. I don't personally have
yeah,
kids, so I'm not like an expert on that, but that is, I'm glad you brought that topic up. That is something that has come up in the community, people having those questions. So we'll
okay,
definitely be in the future look at bringing some experts
yeah.
on to talk specifically about that.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of families, young families, and I think that's going to be an important section is to have some parenting advice. But I love that you go on the journey with them. That was a really cool thing because I hope to start a family someday. And I think it'll help me be more grounded in my diet when I'm taking care of others more, that I'm pretty mindful as is. I think mindful is a great word also for the vegan community, is being mindful about what you're putting in and on your body. That's what we say at Live Ultimate too, is, you know, think about what you're about to eat. Think about what you're about to buy. Are you buying something that is some crazy processed food that might taste amazing and it might be some major cheat, but you know, it's really, you're voting with your dollar. And that's another thing I always think about. Every single time you spend money, you're voting with your dollar. And I kind of wanted to touch quickly on, you know, what, before we go into the vegan restaurant section, which I want to prepare you for,
Yeah.
I want to touch quickly on the state of Florida politics, because I'm interested in what you think. You invited some speakers to your workshop that you had, a lecture series in Fort Lauderdale about 2 years ago that I came and watched, and I saw some senators, Florida senators, legislators, even governor candidates at the time. And what do you think overall about the state of Florida, you know, versus South Florida, you know, and how we're developing as a, and feel free to be candid. We don't hold back any punches here. On like not only vegan, but also the environment, I think, you know, which is near and dear to vegans' hearts.
For me, I'm not interested in political parties are drawing lines. I'm interested in the issues. I'm interested in how do we make this a better environment, especially here in South Florida, because we're, what, 15, 20 years away from there not being a South Florida, there not being an entire eastern seaboard. So we get to figure out what is actually, what is happening. We get to be clear on that. And that goes back to even what I was saying about your personal journey. We get to have an awareness of what's happening. What happening isn't what one side is saying. What's happening is, what is the conversation? What is impeding our ability to make things happen? If we're collectively saying the king tide and the flooding that's happening in Miami especially is a major problem.
Biscayne Bay, like the fish die off because of low oxygenation levels too. Yeah, did you hear about that? Yeah.
What's stopping us from solving that issue?
Yeah.
So being able to have those conversations, but doing it in such a way where we can hear what everyone has to say, because it's all great if you take a stand and you're like, hey, we're going to write these petitions and things. But if on the other end of that is one person that can stop that petition from even making it to the people, we get to be aware of that. And then we can, as a collective, a think tank, figure out how do we get through. Because it's not, for me, it's about harmony. It's about looking at both sides and then figuring out how do we bring the sides together to come up with a solution. Other than that, we're just doing tailgating. We're just cheerleading our sides. And I'm about solution-oriented approaches, and that's me. And I'm not. And what I'm saying is, I'm not expecting everyone to do that, because we do need people who are super passionate on each side, advocating for what they believe in, so you can refine your positions. And then, but for me, I'm solid with where I am, and I'm always open for different interpretations. So I like to have those conversations when it comes to politics to figure out what can I do with the gifts that I have, the platform that I have? How can I do the most good? And that's the question that I'm always with.
Are there any referendums or anything coming up that you're a part of, or that you want to? Are there any type of things you've heard about being a Broward community leader that we should be aware of in the next couple of months or a year to kind of keep on our radar to think about? Educated on?
I'm slowly starting to get into that space right now. I just had a conversation with someone. I'm not quite ready to talk about it yet, but just to get in the mix, into the think tanks of how we can make a more green environment for South Florida and do it through a very specific way that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm hoping to get something out of that, be inspired, get more of an insight. Like when I was working with the school board, I was a district admin with Broward County Public Schools for 3.5 years, and then worked with them previously 12 years in multiple capacities. I was at the table of a lot of interesting conversations, especially in Broward County. And I just need to get caught up on where we are right now, because I know there were some big plans that's supposed to be gone into place, like right now, from back then when I was a part of the mix, and I can't physically see any changes, and a lot of stuff may have been derailed last year with the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that the pandemic slowed down and kind of derailed some of the things that were working their way into the system, because like I'm really hoping to see more plastic bag bans from like statewide. For the state of Florida. I want Publix, I'm going to say it. I go to Publix a lot, and I used to ban them for about 3 months because I didn't agree with the way they were treating the state of Florida. And they've gotten better with the Greenwise brand, and they do give out, reusable bags, which I got one at my local Publix. And when you use it, you get a coupon if you spend over $50 or something with your green bag. And I always use my green bags, but I want to see statewide ban on plastic bags, and I want Publix to help get behind that, and other grocers, instead of like lobbying against it when the cities want it. The city of Surfside, the city of Coral Gables, the city of Key West, city of Miami Beach. These are leading communities, that we want to protect the sea turtles. We want to protect, the oceans, the bay, the water supply. We want to promote solar. Those are things that I'm really passionate about. So if you don't mind keeping an eye on kind of some of those hot button issues, I know you invited politicians in the past, and there's only so much I know you can do with SoFloVegans, but I think that's a big way to bring in more people that are going to see that that's what really attracted me as an environmentalist, that, we can do more to protect our state. Also organic farms and tiny homes. I'm really interested in tiny homes and how they can help, with, you know, my girlfriend and I are looking to build one someday. And I think that you know, you can build an eco-friendly one that's, you know, sounds cliche, but you do the research and you see it's better to buy a tiny home, I think, than to, you know, put your money into a home that's got so much, you know, ancient technology in a sense. You know, let's use the sun. I mean, the sun's ancient, but let's fix, you know, the system a little bit. You know, you can use solar, you can use different systems and currently are being used, better building materials for sure, more energy efficient. You know, they're not just cookie cutter mindless creations. You know, they're mindful. So that's one other thing I really wanted to hope to see more in South Florida is like, there's no tiny home builders down here. We're looking at asking a builder in Orlando to help us called Movable Roots because we couldn't find anyone in South Florida. Everything down here is built on, you know, giant buildings and fancy McMansions and stuff. So that's my little soapbox right there. But all right, Sean, I want to move into the next section. We got 10 minutes left. First section is going to be vegan restaurants that you want to give a shout out to in the Tri-County area. Because I got some viewers here from like Boynton Beach all the way down to the Keys.
Get me in trouble over here, Brian.
Just a couple, because I saw you featuring Tree Lion the other day, and I started following them. So
I would say, number one, go to our website, download our app. We have a directory listing of all the vegan businesses. Not only just a directory listing, we make it a point to go to these restaurants, shoot video content, interview the owners, show you preparation of one of the dishes and the meals of the food, so you get a strong feel for the environment, the love that they put into what they do, why they do what they do. Because I mentioned them a little bit earlier, the new vegan in Delray.
The new vegan, yeah.
The new vegan in Delray.
I was in Delray 2 weeks ago and had a blast up there. I did not know about new vegan, so now I know. Paula, we got to go to new vegan. All right.
You have Veg
I love
Eats,
that. Yeah.
Veg Eats Food. They have this fish sandwich, which is like, I haven't tasted anything like it in a good way in a while, so check them
Where's
out.
Veg Eat Foods?
Veg Eats Food, I think they're off Linton. They're in the Delray area.
Oh, they're Delray too?
Yeah,
okay.
Delray too.
Right.
You have the Rabbit Hole in Pompano. They have really good vegan comfort food. You know, Anika Foods. They're really kind family. Love their parm. Leaves and Roots, if you're down for kava, that's like your chances are, you know, 7 out of 10 chances you go there, you might see me doing some work there. Like,
where's that kava place? Because I know of one in Miami.
It's in the Mass District area, and it's
in Fort Lauderdale. Okay,
Fort Lauderdale.
I've been to Art Walk. Yeah, Art Walk area. Yeah.
And we're actually going to be we're doing art walks every month, so this will be our second art walk coming up this Saturday. So definitely stop by.
Dude,
we're going to be
Art Walk is awesome. Yeah, I love Art Walk. I got to perform. There's a DJ like 5 or 6 times in 2019, and I fell in love with it. And I'm going to go back because I heard it's back now. It started in January. So
stop by this weekend. We're going to have this activation. It's going to be
it's the last weekend of the month. Yeah.
And
so it's the last weekend of every month, just to fill people in, right? It was the last Saturday?
Last Saturday every month. We're going to be giving out food samples. It's going to be right in front of Leaves and Roots, so you can swing through there and check out what they have. They do vegan munchies, you know, like fast food, finger foods. It's really, really dope. And there's a whole bunch more. Holy Vegan Kitchen, Love Life Cafe. And
Love Life. Shout out to Veronica. Yeah.
And there's so many that I'm not mentioning right now. That's why I say you're going to get me in trouble. But just go onto the directory list, and you'll be able to check them out. If I didn't mention you, it's nothing personal.
No. That's awesome. We have limited time today too, because I'm moving on to the next section now, which is I heard, and I didn't know this until yesterday when I dove a little bit deeper. A couple of days ago, I dove a little deeper into your background, and you're a musician, and you're so humble. You don't talk about that, but you're. Can you share a little bit of your music with us for the last 5 minutes, or tell us about your music life too? Well-rounded individual here.
So like in 2007, a friend of mine working at the school I was with, he was really into like alternative rock music, and my thing is always building communities anytime I have a new interest. So I partnered up with him, and we launched something called Top Spot USA with the focus of spotlighting local independent artists. And then we got opportunities to start interviewing national artists. We start going around the country, you know, going to different concerts, festivals. We did Warped Tour 8 years in a row. And ended up interviewing over 300 different artists. So that's where I cut my chops on producing. And that's why it's really like we can do a lot with the production stuff that we do.
Do
And
you use
then
Ableton or do you use Logic? Just a quick question.
no, I don't use either. Like I'm more of like
Okay.
journalist sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
But
All
in
right.
terms of the
Production, sorry.
music, but during that
Yeah.
time, obviously being in recording sessions with different artists and what have you, hip hop, we helped manage a band that got signed to Def Jam. So
Oh, wow.
there was a lot of
Yeah.
stuff going on, and obviously you're around that space. You're in those late night studio sessions, and then I started recording music for myself. Ended up recording over 60 different songs.
Really?
At one point, I
Wow.
was recording a song. I had a podcast radio show, and I was
Yeah.
recording a brand new song every single morning before I went to work, and I did that for 30 days. So that
Whoa.
process kind of tightened up my ability to, rhyme and do things of that nature. So every once in a while, I'll make a brand new song when I'm feeling inspired and all the stars are aligned, and I'll put it out there. Not super serious. Like at this stage in my life, I'm going to get back into music thing, but more on a producing level, producing space, and start bringing up that next generation using the marketing and media production skills that I've acquired over the years to get them to where they want to go. That's really where my heart is. And I can leverage everything that I've done in the past with Top Spot USA to make that happen for people. So that's my headspace right now.
I love that. So just like the vegan lifestyle, you're building community in music as well, and helping to feature the new and rising people that need the opportunity. That's incredible. So how do people find your music first? And then second, we want to hear a little bit of it.
Oh, no. Okay, so you can find everything at SeanARussell.com. You'll get a complete background of what I'm about, all the different industries. I was even in the anime and manga industry for 7 or 12 years, doing stuff similar with SoFlo and Top Spot, and education, same thing. So those are the main areas. So SeanARussell.com is the website. You can learn all about me and hear some of my music.
SoundCloud too, a little bit, YouTube,
everything.
Spotify.
SoundCloud, I have,
I'm on SoundCloud,
podcasts for that. So all that good
cool.
stuff.
I'm gonna look you up on SeanARussell.com.
Yeah.
And your Instagram is Sean A. Russell as well, right? Your personal?
Correct. Sean A. Russell. That's my Instagram. And then of course we have SoFloVegans.
SoFloVegans. Awesome. And you guys have apparel, and you guys have, so go check out the website. I love what you guys are doing. Thank you so much for being our guest today. We have 3 minutes left in our 60-minute segment. Do you want to do any type of freestyle for us to share your passion? No pressure if you don't want to do it.
Yeah, no. I'm not in the headspace for that right now. But go to SeanARussell.com. I have like a complete playlist, I think, of all 60 songs there. You can check it out. I'm not hiding it from anybody. But yeah, definitely check that out. The one I have I was gonna do it, but the one that I have in my head has some curse words in it. And I don't feel like making that my image right now.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that you're a very well-rounded individual, very compassionate. You share a lot of knowledge today about just the lifestyle and the mentality and the movement, South Florida, building this community down here. You've been doing it for a long time now. So I wanted to feature you, even though you're not an ambassador, you're a customer, you're a friend of ours. And we welcome you, not only welcome you to this podcast today, but hope to have you back in the future to catch up with you. And we'll look for you at all the great events coming up. And I know you're hosting your own events soon now that the events are coming back to life in the world. So guys, go check out SoFloVegans on the App Store for Android and for iPhone. SoFloVegans app, check them out on their SoFloVegans.com.
Right.
That's your main website. Instagram, of course, SoFloVegans. And Sean has been, I think I originally might have met you at something like Seed Food and Wine. And I just wanted to give them a quick shout out too. And the founders of Seed Food and Wine, Allison, and just thanks for coming on today. I think a lot of people learned a lot about what being vegan is, and we demystified it a little bit because there's a lot of, people out there that, it could just be confused a little bit. I'm even confused sometimes. So you cleared up a lot of things in my own head, inspired me to keep growing, and evolving. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on today, Sean.
And I wanted to just quickly say anybody anybody that's out there that is interested in being part of our community, contributing, partner that wants to partner up with us, feel free to reach out to me through SoFlo or through Sean. We would love to hear about what you have going on.
So any vegan lifestyle vendors, artists, community people, restaurateurs,
and you don't even have to be fully vegan.
Writers.
Like if you want to embrace the community and start adding vegan options, we'll even work with you behind the scenes to make that happen.
That's awesome. I love that you're connecting the community, featuring them in your directories, getting them out there on Instagram and other places. And I actually have 2 or 3 good contacts I want to send you, like my friends at Grown Next Door and also the organic farm in Miami. You might already know about them, but in Overtown, forget the name right now, but I have it in my Instagram that I volunteered at a couple times. And yeah, Sean, it's been incredible. Let's just stay in touch, and kudos to all the work you're doing in the community. Big respect, and keep living ultimate, man.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, bud. Have a great day. Happy Wellness Wednesday, everyone. We'll see you again next week. Bye. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Sean.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.